What's up, everybody? Welcome into Bad Mouth Sports. I'm running solo today, only because Tony's a busy man. Got 4 kids, and he's a professional chef. You know what I'm saying? So busy man, busy man. But we're gonna keep things. Do my PSA right now. I need to get to 50 subscribers at least. So please, just hit that button. Just hit that button. Just subscribe. You can hit mute, on the dings, but subscribe, please. It'll help me out so much. We need to get to 50 subscribers at least to be able to go live, and that's something that we want to do. So we're gonna run like a Monday live show on Monday Night Football. So I need 50 subscribers. So click the button. All right, that was my PSA. But I'm bringing you another episode. I want to bring you guys this because earlier today I had my first draft of the season. It was exciting. It was a lot of fun. But in the draft, there was a guy. I think I could say his name. I don't think but he goes by Teabag, and this league I'm in called the Longest Yard. It's an 8-man league. It's great. It's been curated. It's been knocked down. We started. It's always been 8 people, but like I joined kind of like on accident. Like it was like a free Yahoo situation, and then the people people do it all the time in fantasy football. They don't draft the way they like. They don't like their team, or they do crappy in the first week and they just bail out. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Not for your league, especially if you're joining it with friends and family or whatever. Like I know football's long. I know it's like 20 weeks, but just like try to have some fun. That's what fantasy football's for. It's no fun if you don't play. It's no fun if you bow out. It's no fun if you just drop your whole team. So, it's just no fun. Like, we're here to play and just enjoy the sport of football together, and possibly win some money. Some money. But we were in this draft, and Teabag ended up drafting Brock Purdy in the first, which I wouldn't have chosen, but not a bad pick in the first round because you got to start two quarterbacks, 4 wide receivers, 3 running backs, 2 tight ends, 2 flex, 2 kicker, 2 defense is what it is, right? So quarterback in the first round makes sense. Maybe you love Brock Purdy, whatever. But in the second round, on the turn, he took Kansas City's defense. So I kind of gave him some crap about it. And he, mentioned that he hasn't played or cared about football in 10 years. Nothing wrong with that. Let's get you back in, baby. Let's get that love back because fantasy football is so much fun. I love fantasy football. It's crazy. Like sometimes too much, but it is what it is. So I thought, why not bring some draft strategies? Because also, at the very least, there's some stuff that you should just think about going into a draft. Like there's a lot of people out there that are going to be new. There's a new person joining my league this year. There's new people joining fantasy football all the time. That's why it's so great, right? But not everybody has the same learning curve and things like that. So this is just I went through and I learned all these like specific names. There's all kinds of fancy names for these draft strategies. So I'm gonna give you those fancy names, but I'm gonna break them down hopefully in a way that is digestible. Okay, so yeah, let's get into it. Yeah, I was in a draft today, and it was a fun draft. It's one of my favorite leagues that I'm in. It's a league that I like accidentally got into. It's on Yahoo Fantasy Sports, old school app or whatever. And I accidentally joined this league, and I've been in this league now 3 years, maybe 4 years. I'm not sure, but I won the championship last year, which is pretty dope. Yeah, soft brag. But I was in that draft, and but like from what I gathered is like he mentioned in the comments that he hasn't paid attention to football in 10 years. So fantasy or otherwise, right? So it kind of gave me some perspective like, dang, maybe, there's a lot of people out there that just don't know how to draft. But I'm kind of going to give an overall basis for beginners. This is like a beginner's guide, drafting 101, to kind of get things going for people that just want to have fun and enjoy this great thing that I love to do is fantasy football. And I love talking about it. I love learning about it, but not everybody has the time, and things like that. And I only have the time because this is like not just a hobby for me. I'm like probably obsessed with football and fantasy football, and I love it. It's great. So here we go. We're gonna talk some draft strategies, tips and tricks, and things like that. And so one main thing I just want to throw out there for fantasy managers is you need to mock draft. You need to practice. Just like anything that you do, you practice or you learn about it. Mock drafting is going to be the best way to learn about the process of drafting. What the mock drafting is going to do before you even think about strategies is just going to like reintroduce players' names to you. It's going to make you more familiar with like maybe where people are going at, because when you mock draft, like the way it's set up is by ADP. If you're not familiar with ADP, it's the average draft position. Okay? Average draft position for that platform. So if you're on the sleeper platform, the way it's numbered 1 through 1,000 football players, they're going to be ranked by ADP by where they're drafted at. So 1.01 means their average draft position is the first pick of the draft, and that's Christian McCaffrey, right? But then it tiers down from there, and there's other rankings for other players, and each platform kind of has them ranked at different places, certain players. So just pay attention to your ADP. Run mock drafts in your platforms and take it a little bit serious, like even a little bit. If you're new, mock draft, mock draft, mock draft, mock draft. Learn these players' names. See where they're going, where you're taking them at, things like that. Even if you don't have favorite players or you don't know anybody out there, just learn where positional players are going, learn where other players are going, so you're not reaching too far and drafting a defense in the second round, okay? Because that's called reaching. Reaching is picking a player way above ADP. Some players recommend it, other players not so much, okay? So what I'm saying is learn the ADP. That's the easiest way to draft. It's a simple draft strategy. It's very minimal thinking. A lot of other people have done the thinking for you, because that's, and ADP has become, with more people that have played, ADP has become more accurate. So the more people that play this sport, the more accurate it actually becomes. So those outliers aren't raising the ADP too much. Another way to draft and look at things that gets deeper into it, it's a little nerdy, but it's also for gamblers and it's also for people like me who take fantasy football maybe a little too seriously. It's value-based drafting, right? So you're taking players at different positional values. You're like looking for that value. Example this season so far from what I've seen is Raheem Mostert. Like I think I got Raheem in like the 13th round. Like, wow, wild. But that to me was a value, so I took him there. That's value-based drafting. You got to pay attention a little bit more. You got to have an understanding of football and actually like have an opinion on maybe where these players are going to turn out, because that's what reaching is for. Is if you think a player is going to be like way better than everybody else, you just take them because you're hoping you get that return on value. Okay, that's what that means, return on value, blah blah blah. You're getting a player, at a low draft cost, but the investment paid out in dividends. Think about it that way. Like low investment, high payout is value based drafting. Okay. A next easy draft strategy is just the 1-1-1-1. And what I mean by that is you're you're taking a wide receiver, running back, quarterback, tight end, first 4 picks. You're just knocking out your onesie positions. Onesie for you guys is so onesie is just like a quick term for the one positional players. Like most leagues, there's one quarterback, one tight end. Those are your onesie positions. Also kicker and defense, but Don't worry about those guys in your draft. Trust me, trust me, trust me, trust me. Don't. The value isn't there until way later, maybe your last couple picks. I promise. It's science proven by many other people that do the math for me and AI and things like that. Like the equation proves that the value of drafting any of those guys earlier than your last couple picks, there's just no the value of return is not there, even if you have the best defense in the league. So that's onesie. That's very popular. I know a lot of people that do that because it's just quick and easy. You just get your guys, you get your first couple guys out the way, and they basically after that just they like pencil it in. So they just draft what it says they need. So if they need a wide receiver, they're taking a wide receiver. If they need a running back, they're taking a running back, and they're just doing it by ADP, and they're just picking either their favorite or if they read the name or heard the name somewhere that they're drafting that position, and that's how they're running it. That's okay. That's a good strategy. I've done that. I've done that religiously for a long time in different leagues. It's a safe strategy, right? Another thing that you want to think about is you always want to have balance, even when you have these other strategies. Balance. Okay. So let's get into another strategy that's super popular, or at least it used to be. It's waned a lot in the last couple of years just because of the return on investment. Okay. And that's the hero RB strategy. Usually, if you hear hero and then another position, no matter what it is, that just means you're drafting that in the first round. And then that's who your ride or die is, right? So it's also known as like elite drafting. So like if you're taking an elite quarterback in the first couple of rounds, that's a style of drafting, but that like incorporates like hero RB or zero RB. Zero RB just means you don't draft any running backs until way later. But hero RB is like you take Christian McCaffrey in the first, then you take, I don't know, Jaden Waddle, and so on and so forth, and you build your roster that way. You can draft multiple running backs. That's super high testosterone. That just means you're like really going hard on this running back position, um, and you're kind of punting other positions. Punting in fantasy football and drafting is just like you're kicking it to the curb. You're just knocking it way back. You're not caring about those other positions. Okay. Hero RB is my favorite. I have, I'm biased. Okay. So I always like to go running back at least first or second. It really depends on where I'm drafting from too, though, because I like drafting kind of in the back of the draft. The first part of the draft is just like honestly too much anxiety for me. All right, but that's hero RB. Okay, you could keep going heavy RB, keep going down the line. I wouldn't take any more than three. Like if you go three running backs in the first, like that's a lot of cojones right there because you're really like pushing wide receiver back. I don't know, like next, I would just go quarterback next or tight end next and say F the wide receiver. I go zero wide receiver and then just draft a bunch of like high upside guys and hope for the best. That's kind of what I would do. Um, if you ended up taking three, but I wouldn't take three. One or two in the first three is great. That way you have some balance and you're able to draft some other guys like anchor RB is you're taking two, and there's anchor RB, zero RB, hero RB. You're going to hear this all the time out there, but it's very simple. Zero, none. Okay. Cons, you got to find one later, and you're hoping for a high upside or somebody to get hurt, and I don't like drafting that way. Hero RB, like I said, you're focusing on drafting your favorite or who you think is going to finish number one. So like Christian McCaffrey or Bijan this year in the first round. That's kind of that strategy. But always be flexible because that's going to change. That's going to change. Like always be flexible. This is my favorite, but this year, I'm thinking about doing something crazy, and I'm thinking about doing zero RB and going wide receiver heavy, which is very popular because people have realized that wide receivers don't get hurt as much in the NFL as running backs for obvious reasons, but also that's also the thing. Injuries are unpredictable. Do not draft based on like injury fears or things like that, because you got to draft on the possibilities, because this is all fantasy football is all a numbers game. It's gambling. We're gambling, right? Like in a sense, you're picking players and you're hoping for the best. You're hoping that they do better than other players and that you drafted right and better than everybody else or whoever you pick up in the waivers, things like that, right? So don't draft in the fear of injuries. Is something I've come to realize, because I've been afraid to draft. I mean, I literally bumped Christian McCaffrey the last couple years, and he's done great. You know what I mean? I had the second pick last year, and Christian McCaffrey wasn't taken, and I could have taken him. I went elite quarterback, and I took Josh Allen. So it is what it is. I made it to the playoffs. You know, I'm a third place kind of guy, I guess. But another popular another popular quarterback strategy um, that gets implemented a lot is like a late quarterback. Why? Because quarterback is the only position out there that touches the ball on every single play. So they all kind of are valuable as long as they're a starter. Some just have better value, and I would say if you don't get one of the top five guys, you just punt quarterback and you go late round. You capitalize on the positionals and you take those, or you go elite tight end and you take one of the top five tight ends in the first 3 rounds, first 5 rounds, because you're going to have to. I know in one of my leagues, there's going to be a run as soon as Sam Laporta's taken. Every single tight end is getting taken off the board. That's what a run is in a draft. It usually starts. It's like quarterback runs, tight end runs, defensive runs. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So these are some draft strategies that you could implement. So when you go into these drafts, these are things that you could think about and go into those drafts, and especially mock draft. I can't emphasize mock drafting enough. It's so important because it allows you to learn players. It allows you to, like, you could click on them, read a little blurb about them. You could see their height and weight. I mean, I knew somebody one year, they literally just drafted based on looks. Like if this guy had a nice jawline and cheekbones, they drafted that person. Didn't matter what position they played. It's crazy. They didn't do great, but you know. So mock draft, mock draft, mock draft. At least that way you could become familiar with some of these players, especially like in the top 10 rounds. That's kind of like your bread and butter and like the most important part. But let's get into some don'ts, okay? Because there's a lot of just don'ts when you go into drafting, right? You don't want to panic draft. You don't want to not have a queue set up, even if maybe the guy next in the queue isn't the guy you want. But if something happens, if you lose internet connection, or you go under a tunnel, or you're in an elevator, or you're on an airplane or something like that, like, no matter what, that way you have access to be able to just like it'll just pick a player for you. Because a lot of these platforms, their algorithm is actually not. I wouldn't trust it. I mean, it based things off of like necessity, and it factors in ADP, and it's just not a reliable source, because it doesn't take into account team needs often, especially after it fills in the positions that are not filled. So yeah, set a queue. Always set a queue. Okay. Another don't is don't draft based on injuries. Don't draft based on bye weeks, because you could always pick somebody up. Okay, there's always going to be somebody out there on the waiver wire that you could plug and play. I plugged in Kyle Juszczyk last year. He scored a touchdown. Glorious. Okay, like, I needed a running back. My guys were hurt. I was struggling. Got a TD. Sometimes that's all you can ask for. Everybody always wants the big plays, okay, or the big players. Don't don't focus on winning at the draft. Like, do your best and study and learn and take some of these draft strategies and implement them, because they're strategies for a reason. That means they work. They've worked for other people. They continue to work. Everybody has an opinion on which one's the best, on which one they like, which one's their favorite. That's why we'll get into it again with Tony and our guest on Monday. But going to the draft with a plan, even if it breaks down, because it's going to break down. It's going to get crazy out there. Drafts are like a war zone. Like, you think one person's going to do one thing and then they do a completely other thing. Like, if you really want to get into draft strategies, like, learn the people in your leagues. That's why it's fun to play with like the same players year in and year out, because you kind of learn them and be like, oh, I know what they are doing. Like, I know my dad. He takes a quarterback in the first 2 rounds. He's a elite quarterback kind of guy. He's a onesie guy too, but he's a elite kind of quarterback guy. Not a problem with that. I just know he's going to do that. Who's he going to take? Usually Patrick Mahomes, but that depends if it falls to him. I've been in family leagues where 5 quarterbacks go in the first round. So, you know, then everything's out the window after that. Then you kind of just do what you want, and it's fun, man. I mean, it's a war zone. So yeah, don't draft based on buys. Don't draft based on injuries unless they're like currently injured. Um, don't draft. Don't draft inebriated. I know that's tough for some people. I like drinking too, but I promise you, there'll be time to drink after your draft. So just take it steady before the draft. Drink during the draft. Get drunk by the 20th round. That's fine, you know. But don't get drunk before your draft. You'll regret it. I promise. You'll end up taking Rob Gronkowski in the third, and everybody will laugh. So he's not coming back. Um, Neither is Tom Brady. So stop. But yeah, man, it's been fun. I hope you guys learned some stuff. And if you got any questions, just post them down in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer them. I'll reach out to each and every one of you who respond with something. But yeah, I mean, so those are just some don'ts going into your draft. Have fun with it, man. Um, but my last don't is don't go into it too drunk. Don't go into it too hammered. I know it's a good time. This is just some advice. My worst teams have been my teams when I went into the draft drunk. My best teams are the ones when I got drunk by the 20th round. So take that for what it is. You do you, boo. But this is just a don't that I don't do no more. Um, yeah. You don't want to be passed out by the 10th round. You don't want to draft Rob Gronkowski in the third. It's just, you don't want to be the laugh of the draft. You know what I mean? But have a plan, set a cue, you know, have some favorite players. Go out there, research some players. Like, if you find a guy that, like, I don't know, we have a couple women in our league, and they're really good at fantasy football, but I don't know their strategies or how they're drafting. But I know one year one of them drafted based on cheekbones, and yeah, but they didn't learn about them. Go learn about them. Learn about players. These are people. Go learn about them. At least know what positions they play. Have fun with your drafts. It's a good time. It's going to be a fun season, baby. Fun season. Peace.